Good Saturday evening, everyone. In this forecast, we are keeping an eye on a big weather pattern change that is coming by the middle of next week, with multiple strong snowstorms coming for the northern plains, for the Great Lakes, for the Northeast, with more stormy, unsettled weather for the Pacific Northwest, including for California. Now, if you are new to the channel and you really like these detailed weather discussions, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification icon, hit the like button, and share this video with your family and friends on social media. And lastly, be sure to check out our Weather Force Discord server. There's a link in the description below this video. It is free to join today. So taking a look at the very latest European model here for Sunday afternoon into Monday. This is a forecast for 60 hours out. And here is our big instigator upper level disturbance over California. This is going to bring in some nice welcoming rain, beneficial rain for the fires that are burning in Southern California, which is good news to hear. Mountain snowfall also for southeastern portion of California, southern Nevada. But once this system gets into the plains, it is going to trigger a big severe weather event potentially for the deep south and mega snow potentially for portions of the northern plains and high plains. Before that low pressure system over the desert southwest does move into the high plains, we will have a couple of quick moving snowstorms over the Northeast and the Great Lakes. The first one is going to be moving over portions there of Quebec and Ontario, Canada, pretty much for Monday into Tuesday. This is going to be a quick mover. It's not going to bring a whole lot of significant snowfall to the Northeast, but nonetheless, it will bring in some good snowfall, around 3 to 7, maybe 8 inches. That moves through with another second system that's going to be clipping the Great Lakes region into the Northeast. And this one looks a little bit more intense than the first system that moves in. So you can see here by Wednesday, we have that snowstorm, pretty significant actually, over Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, northern half of New York State, as well as Connecticut. And that moves through actually Massachusetts and Connecticut. And then more cooler air moves in before the pattern changes. And you can see some lake effect snow additionally moving in out of the northwest. But then look what we got here for the latter part of next week for Wednesday and into Thursday. We have a significant winter storm that develops here. I mean, we're truly looking at very heavy snowfall, whiteout conditions, blizzard conditions over New Mexico. This is going to be moving into the high plains by the time we go into Thursday, Friday, and even into Saturday. So it looks like by the very end of next week, we are looking at a substantial winter storm here that could bring a lot of snowfall for the high plains, big time severe weather for the deep south, damaging winds, maybe some tornadoes, and some heavy rainfall with the tail end of that system moving on through that cold front. And then guess what develops? More significant winter storms move into California and the Pacific Northwest. This is a welcoming sight because, well, guess what we have now? Ridge back west, trough back east, but the pattern is going to do a flipperoo where we have trough back west and ridge back east. And what that's going to result is repeated storm after storm after storm. We're looking at a parade of intense snowstorms up here in the northern plains, the high plains, and the Great Lakes. There is the first one that comes off the Rockies, and then guess what? There's a second one that comes off the Rockies by the first couple of days of February. So a very, very active pattern is setting up, especially by very late January into February, and perhaps beyond that, we're looking at repeated snowstorms and potentially maybe even a minor ice storm for the Northeast. And then there's more. There's more heavy rainfall for the southeast and the deep south, but no snow. Good news there. And then maybe another one after that, and that moves in pretty much across the plains. The GFS model is handling this very differently as far as our two snowstorms go initially for the Northeast as well as the Great Lakes. You can see the first system moves on in, right, brings light to moderate to maybe even heavier snowfall, especially for the higher elevations. But the thing with this system or with this GFS model is there's really not anything organized. It's just kind of a re-amplification of more moisture that moves over the Great Lakes region by Tuesday and Wednesday next week. unlike the European model that has it more organized. So that moves through, and then here comes that next system, big old fat ridge of high pressure, or at the surface, that is, on the backside of a trough. The air is sinking, it's cooling as it does so, and then there's our system. That's going to result in more snow for the Intermountain West, especially for New Mexico, with that first system that moves in, and then it moves into the plains and typically this time of the year, when we get southwesterly flow, we get divergent flow off the Rockies, we get cyclogenesis, we get a Colorado Rocky low that develops. And then on the southeastern side of that, we typically get dynamics such as severe weather and a cold front that sets up. And then after that, we have another system showing up here on the GFS. The GFS being pretty aggressive on the 18Z run. And then look at it, just continues. More storms for California. Those eject into the desert southwest and then eventually into the plains, where there's going to be more significant snow, perhaps blizzard conditions, and more ice. This is 312 hours out, by the way, so this is going out to the first full week of February. But I'll tell you, the pattern is setting up to where we are going to have multiple rounds of heavy snow, colder temperatures, especially for the northern plains and out across the Intermountain West. The Canadian model is in great agreement that this pattern will develop, a very hyperactive pattern that is. So as we go forward in time, there is our first snowstorm, again for the early to the middle of next week, especially for Quebec and Ontario, Canada, and the Northeast. Does want to re-amplify something. A little weak disturbance ripples through that thermal belt, basically, or that thermal wind profile. Warmer air down to the south, colder air to the north, and what you get is a meeting point and where we get our polar front. And along that polar front, we can get these little disturbances, and the Canadian is clearly showing that. So both the European and the Canadian are both agreeing that there will be more amplified snow going on across the Great Lakes and out across the Northeast before our next bigger system does set up here. Now, if we looked at yesterday's run, 0Z run, it showed a massive ice storm over much of the central U.S. and also across the Northeast. In this model run, we are seeing the same thing, but not as much ice here over the central U.S. And this would be for February 1st. All right, so at the very end of next week, we're looking very far out, about 7 to 8 days out. But look at this. As we go forward, yeah, there's going to be snow. There's going to be ice problems potentially. The Canadian has been showing this. Also, other models have been showing that there could be a decent ice storm here over the Carolinas as well as Pennsylvania. But good news, this is pretty far out, 225 hours out for February the 2nd. And yeah, that's basically a week from this upcoming Sunday. So it is pretty far out in time, and there's a lot to change in the modeling. But a very active weather pattern nonetheless is going to be setting up across much of the United States, but colder back west, warmer back east with ridging, southwesterly flow. That brings dynamics into the U.S. Now, as far as those snowfall totals go through the very end of next week, that would be through the 1st of February. This is what we're looking at as far as your snowfall totals go. So anywhere between about 6 to 12 inches of snow across the Intermountain West into the Four Corners region, including the Pacific Northwest. However, yes, anything that gets past the Rocky Mountains and gets into the plains could also bring quite a bit of snowfall, especially with that first system where some areas could get a foot to maybe a couple of feet of snowfall, with Quebec and Ontario, Canada, including for the Northeast, that could measure snowfall in around 6 to 12 inches, with some areas maybe up to 1.5 feet of snow. Now, adding additional snowfall after that with other storms, you can get another 1 to 1.5 feet of snow for the high plains and also for the Northeast. So again, a very snowy pattern is setting up. And when we look at the extreme end of the forecast here, very far out in time, this is what we're looking at. Extreme snow for the Northeast, perhaps, with a lot of snowfall for the high plains of the Rockies, and also for the high plains of, say, Kansas, Oklahoma, the Dakotas, you name it, getting a lot of snowfall over the next couple of weeks. The GFS model going very aggressive as well, with significant extreme snowfall totals over the next 2 weeks through the first full week of February. for the Great Lakes for the Northeast. Most of this would be in the form of lake effect snow, but at times we get those snowstorms moving over. That will add on to those totals. And then the Rockies and the Intermountain West could get up to several feet of snowfall thanks to the higher elevations, the topography associated with these winter storms. And also for portions of the Dakotas and southern Minnesota could get up to about a couple of feet of snow. Now, the reason why the pattern is going to be changing into early February is when we look at our 500 millibar chart here, our height anomalies, basically where there's areas of really high pressure and where there's areas of lower pressure and much colder temperatures. So when we look at this map of North America, including the Arctic up here, including for Canada and Alaska, you can see we have a big old fat ridge of high pressure. That is bringing us the colder temperatures out of the north, especially for the weekend over the west coast, including for more snow and rainfall because this trough is going to amplify. And you'll see this here as we put this into motion. There's your cutoff low, and there's your ridge that builds to the north of this. This is what we call a Rex block or a split flow pattern. But it's not going to last for very long because once this trough weakens and moves out into the North Atlantic, as you can see here, it's going to take some time. It's going to take pretty much through the middle to the end of next week. That's going to change, and look what happens. We get a pattern shift happening. Ridge in the east, trough in the west. And what does that mean, folks? Yeah, get rid of the Arctic air, right, under southwesterly flow and even zonal flow. So yes, much of the lower 48 here going to enjoy much warmer temperatures in the long run as soon as this pattern changes. And look at this. This continues. Really, look at the troughing across the west. Big time negative PNA that sets up and negative EPO. No, wait. Yeah, that's what it is. PNA and EPO can be very negative under this influence. And then look at the ridge back across the east. Very classic December pattern that we were in at first that brought really warm record temperatures over the east, brought much colder temperatures across the west. We're entering that pattern again as we go into early February, folks. So brace yourself for big time snowstorms, very strong winds, and much colder temperatures across the west, with more severe weather events coming for the southern tier of the U.S. Now, if you found this video really helpful, detailed, and informative, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification icon, hit the like button, and share this video with your family and friends on social media. And don't forget to also check out our Weather Force Discord server. It is free to join today. Click the link below to get started. But anyways, I will see you all back here tomorrow evening with another detailed weather forecast.